Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about clothing and chronic illness, which is kind of a weird topic, but if you're chronically ill, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is probably gonna be sort of like a little mini series that is related to clothing and chronic illness. But in this video, I wanted to address um, the issues that chronically ill people may have with clothing. So the most common issues I think are probably sensory issues, issues that have to do with fit, um, either being overweight or being underweight, and allergies, I think, are a big one as well, and cost. Clothing can be very, very expensive, um, and that is, you know, not accessible. Accessibility in general, I think these are all under the umbrella of accessibility, but I know that there are also those people that just have difficulty putting on clothes. So accessibility or ease of use, I guess, could be another reason. There are tons and tons of reasons why clothing can be problematic for chronically ill people. If you have any more, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm going to address the ones that apply to me, because I'm, basically just, I can only give you my own lived experience with my own limitations. So, sensory issues are a big one. I myself do not like. And the complicated issue with sensory issues is that they also change. So, for example, I used to wear a lot of leggings. That was a type of clothing that was very comfortable for me. And then from one point on, I just stopped liking leggings. I did not like the feeling of fabric so close, or so snug to my skin. And then I kind of went back to denim, which is very problematic for a lot of us, given that it can be very inflexible, kind of rigid, tight, and kind of weird fitting. So sensory issues can change over time. One of my other bigger pet peeves is elastic. So I brought these as an example. These are comfortable on me, but the elastic that I'm talking about is like when you see a seam like this. Elastic is a very big problem for me, particularly if it hits sort of in the middle of the stomach, like around the belly button. It just, even if it's not painful, it can just be bothersome for whatever reason. So sensory issues can be very, very, very specific. Like I said, with the elastic, I can deal with these, but if the elastic hits up higher, it just bothers me a lot. So sensory issues are not just a problem for chronically ill people. We know that this is very common with neurodivergent people, people with ADD, people with autism. Sensory issues are a big problem for a lot of people. Also, the fact that I have a lot of stomach issues means that I can't really wear anything tight in general, especially on my abdominal area. So when it comes to exercise clothing, that can be a challenge. Um, so again, it is going to depend on your own symptom profile. There are other people that don't have stomach issues, but that may have skin issues, and that's where allergies can come into play. So I know that there are some materials. I mean, a lot of clothing is made out of essentially natural materials. Cotton. I believe rayon and modal are also made out of natural materials. They can sometimes be made out of bamboo. Um, and I know that some of those things are allergenic. I luckily, knock on wood, I do get very paranoid about this because I have a history of skin issues. I don't have, uh, not yet, any allergies to clothing that I have noticed. But I do know that, because I do research fabrics quite a bit. Um, I do know that there are some fabrics that are more prone to causing allergies, and I believe either modal or rayon are is one of those that is has a tendency to cause an allergy. So that's another problem that a lot of chronically ill people may have. Fit. Fit is a huge one for me. And like I said, I can only speak about my own experience. So when you watch my videos talking about clothing, I will be addressing being very, very thin. I know that being overweight is a big one as well for a lot of people, and having difficulty finding clothing that fits. But I can only speak to my own experience. And being underweight is a huge challenge as well. Um, a lot of brands, especially brands that are sold at more well-known places like Nordstrom's, um, let's say a place like Kohl's, a lot of their sizes run very big. So even if I go in there, well, I can't go in there, but even if I order like online or something, an extra small, it's going to run big. Actually, they may not even run big. I'm just so skinny that it feels like all of this clothes runs really large. So that is a huge challenge for me. And I know, like I said before, a lot of people are overweight, and that also is a challenge for them to find clothing that fits. And that goes back to the issue of comfort, right? Of tightness and sensory issues. So not only your size can also determine whether you're going to have, you know, whether your sensory issues are going to be bothered by the clothing that you purchase. And it is just, I mean, it becomes such a challenge and um, such a hassle because of the next issue, which is cost. I will be doing a separate video addressing cost, and some little tips and tricks that I have learned, or just kind of some savvy shopping things that I have done in order to find the best price possible for some of the clothing that I buy. Um, and because cost is such a huge issue for people that are disabled and chronically ill and living on a fixed income. Now, I'm not saying that we're all poor, because there are some of us who are fine, who are not only financially stable, but are probably well off. But I don't want to generalize, but I think it's safe to say that many of us are on a tight budget, and many of us are very money conscious, because a lot of us are paying for medical costs out of pocket, um, especially those of us that are uninsured or underinsured. Um, a lot of us are buying supplements which are not covered by insurance, and we have to pay for those out of pocket. Supplements are not cheap, and a lot of us are trying alternative treatments as well, which are very expensive. So clothing tends to come last on the list when it comes to our budgets. And this one is a personal, it's a very personal something that makes me very sad, because I did do a video recently, well, I'm saying recently, but probably a few months ago, talking about how chronically ill people can enjoy so little, because everything can be a problem for us, whether it comes to food, whether it comes to going out places. And clothing is a big one. And I like clothes. I love clothes. I love shopping. I love all of that. And it has been such a demoralizing, and I'm almost tearing up. I know that this is a very superficial thing, but it's one of those things that I took for granted in the past when I was, healthier. And now it's like, you see something cute, or you see something nice, or even something that looks comfortable, like it would accommodate my sensory issues, and it doesn't fit right. It doesn't look good. And it's like, well, do I have to compromise, looking nice or looking presentable to be comfortable? And that is a huge issue, especially if some of us still work. I mean, I don't work, but I know a lot of chronically ill people still work. And it's like, I need to look presentable when I go to work, or when I'm out, amongst people. And the one thing that I feel comfortable in looks like, like a burlap sack or something. So, you know, if you're not sick, you're not going to think of these things. But when you're sick, you start thinking about all of this. And it's really, like I said, it's demoralizing, and it's depressing. And it's hard, and I know that there are a lot of overweight people that struggle with this as well. I know that that's one of the big issues when it comes to being heavier, is wanting to look nice or wanting to look cute and wear trendy clothes, but it doesn't come in your size. And I have seen a lot of people sharing those sentiments on social media when it comes to being larger sized. It's also a challenge when you're very, very thin. So this is, um, so like I said, I'm speaking from my own experience, and I sort of also want to raise awareness that it is a challenge, even if you're really skinny. So like I said, I will be addressing cost further in another video. So I'm going to kind of give my own tips and tricks when it comes to purchasing clothing when you're on a budget or when you're sick. Because also too, the returning clothes is one of those things that can sometimes be embarrassing because you do it so frequently. But also it can be hard if you have a lot of limitations. For example, I have neurological problems, and fluorescent lights can be really, really rough for me. I cannot shop inside a clothing store. For example, I cannot go to a TJ Maxx and just go and look around on the racks. I can't do that. I cannot shop inside a physical clothing store. And when it comes to buying something online and having to return it in the store, that can also be a challenge as well. So I will be addressing that in my next video. Um, and so it becomes embarrassing, even if you don't have those limitations, just constantly having to go to a store, constantly returning clothing. A lot of times the store associates, they'll start to recognize you, and they're just like, why is this person returning so much? They will also start to assume that you're going out and wearing the clothes and then bringing it back, which does happen. But when it comes to somebody who's chronically ill, sometimes we do have to wear something a little bit to find out where exactly it's going to bother us on our bodies, whether we're going to have an allergic reaction. And then it's like, okay, well, I wore this for a couple of days. It's not working for me. I got to take it back. So it can be embarrassing. It can be very embarrassing. It can be something that is shameful for us. And I've actually run into that issue myself, especially during the pandemic when I had to find different ways of shopping for my clothing than the usual way, which I will talk about in another video. So for me, I think those are my top four issues when it comes to being chronically ill. I know that there are a ton more. I know that people are probably going to be telling me, hey, why didn't you address this? Why didn't you address that? I know that there is an issue with adaptability for people that have, mobility issues. And I believe there are some brands, like I think like Tommy Hilfiger came out with an adaptive line, and Aerie, which is like a which is American Eagle, but I think it's kind of like their casual wear or lounge wear line. I believe they came out with some adaptable clothing as well, like adaptable underwear. But I believe that remains one of the top challenges because that doesn't exist really. It's kind of up to the buyer to make their own clothes adaptable for them. I'm fortunate enough where I don't have a lot of those motor issues. I may in the future, but I am lucky in that sense that I can still dress myself. Is it kind of hard sometimes? Yeah, like there's some things that are kind of annoying. I don't like bending over. Tying shoes isn't obnoxious. Um, Having to tie the little clasp on the sandal is really annoying just because I have to be bent over for a while. So, I understand that to a certain degree, but I know that there are people out there that literally just can't even tie their own shoes. So, unfortunately, I can't speak to that too much, but I will be addressing, some of these other issues. So, for people that don't understand how clothing can be an issue, for those of us who are sick, this is basically a summary. Sensory issues, allergies, cost is a big one. Adaptability, um, size, whether it fits, looking presentable, looking like a normal human being when you're out in public is definitely a hard one. But hopefully this sheds some light on these issues, and can hopefully somebody out there that's a fashion designer will, start to kind of think about those of us that are disabled and say, hey, we need some more adaptive clothing, because there are people out there that literally cannot dress themselves, and cannot afford to have somebody dress them either. So that's what I've got for this video. Like I said, stay tuned. I'm gonna maybe make this into like a little bit of a mini series, and address some of these topics um, a little bit more in depth. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you again very soon. Take care.